Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, January 28, 2016. I'm Lafern Fraser with the details. Continuing to express his discord for what he believes was not a free or fair general elections on December 9, 2015, leader of the New Democratic Party and the opposition party, Arnim Eustace, says as part of their ongoing protest action, they will not be attending Parliament tomorrow, where the 2016 budget estimates will be presented. At a media conference at the NDP's headquarters today, Eustace says that his party's protest action and fight against the ruling Unity Labour Party, or the ULP administration, whom he refers to as an illegitimate government, must not only be in the courts and the streets, but also through their actions at the House of Assembly. The ongoing protest action in front of the electoral office has been successful thus far and commended those who continue to support the party's position with its challenge of the election results.
In other words, we cannot protest the election results elsewhere and pretend otherwise in Parliament. The conduct of Parliament cannot be separated from the heightened political struggles and battles that are taking place outside. It must acknowledge the existing conditions and reflect in some measure the concerns of the larger body politic. The people who voted for us expect nothing less. In that regard, we, the members of the Parliament of the New Democratic Party, have decided that we will not take part in the sitting of the Parliament on Friday, January 29th, that is tomorrow.
Eustace says they will continue to send a clear message that they will not accept or recognize the Unity Labour Party administration led by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves.
We have decided that it cannot be business as usual in the Parliament of St. Vincent and Grenadines tomorrow. It is important, vitally so, that we send a loud and clear message to the local community and to others watching in the region and from further afield that we do not accept the legitimacy of the present interim government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that the political conditions in the country remain unsettled and indeed precarious. As usual, fellow Vincentians, we rely on your support and on your trust. We will continue to consult and dialogue with you so that we remain well informed by and what you say and by how you feel about conditions in our country.
Meanwhile, the NDP leader described the 2016 budget estimates, which will be presented in Parliament tomorrow by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, as garbage, a farce with fictitious figures. Eustace says the $151 million that will be presented is money that the government does not have, and that the ULP administration continues to put this country into a deficit.
That these deficits are not small figures. When I say deficit, I mean they're spending money they don't have. Providing money on paper that they don't have, and saying that money is going to be used to finance this project or that, when the money is not there. And in the case of this estimates tomorrow, you're going to have $151 million. Listen to the figure now. You're going to have $151 million for 2016, which you don't have, you know. Because they have expenditure, recurrent expenditure, they have expenditure of $715 million to make, but they only have revenue of 560 something. So what they get in the balance?
According to Eustace, the estimates the government will be presenting tomorrow project further deficits of $168 million for 2017 and $205 million for 2018.
This is what I intend to spend for this year for our country. But the figures you present, you can't show how you're finding $151 million of that. Think of it for 1 year, in St. Vincent. That's a lot of money. Right? They go further. They present the estimates also for 2017 tomorrow. It's not to be dealt with until 2017, but they have the projection there for 2017 and how much is going to be in 2018. And for 2017, the 151 million moves to 168 million for 2017. And the deficit will become 205 million for 2018. So here you have a situation in which the government is saying to you, okay, we have a certain amount of money to spend. Out of that, they expect to be able to do projects, they expect to be able to pay for certain things, but the money in there.
The opposition leader says that such fiscal mismanagement by the ULP government will hinder the economy and job growth of the country.
That should not be part of the debt of our country. We must make enough internally to be able to cover that 151. And as I said, that 151 is 168 next year and 205 the year after. So they're not looking for any improvement. They're not prepared to do anything about it. See how big the estimates are? About 700 pages. Very often it is 700 pages of garbage because the fundamentals of the money being available cannot be found in here. Cannot be found in here because you cannot finance the very things you have in here because you don't have enough money to finance them. It's a very serious problem. It goes to the heart of the growth of our economy and, importantly, it goes to the heart of providing jobs for the people of this country. No wonder our unemployment rates are so high. No wonder so many people are disaffected in our society. But we turn around and bargain for poor relief instead of providing jobs.
Station Sergeant Henry Providence of the traffic branch of the RSVG police force says there is a need for more technological devices to deal with road users, which he says will make their job easier and allow them to crack down on the number of accidents on the road. Station Sergeant Providence says that having the various equipment such as breathalyzers and speed guns will ensure that they carry out their duties effectively. He also noted that it is critical to have proper legislation to ensure that officers can conduct on-the-spot tests on motorists.
But not only legislation, but also hoping that we could see the implementation of this breathalyzer test being administered to persons. We're also hoping that we could see speed guns being used because these are going to help us very well in the administration of our duties. Because what we recognize happening is now that persons, even though they are under the influence of a drug or alcohol, the police is somewhat dormant in regards to his role and functions there because he does not have the apparatus to go with it. So for instance, if persons are met driving under influence, the police has no authority there to force or compel persons to have blood drawn because that is the process that would have to be done. It would be a situation where the police would have to take that person and have blood drawn.
The police station sergeant, however, notes that while having the requisite tools and legislation will be quite helpful, appropriate penalties must also be incorporated so that there are consequences for reckless driving.
If that person refuses, the police has no authority to compel them. So we are really looking forward and hoping that for 2016 we're going to see the breathalyzer test being incorporated into our laws and have the legislation to go with it so to ensure that persons adhere to the breathalyzer test. So it must not be a situation where the police has the authority to administer the test, but being also incorporated into our law, we want to see that if you refuse it, there are penalties if you refuse from doing so.
Students are being encouraged to pursue science in academics. The encouragement came from Chief Education Officer Luann Gilchrist, who was at the time speaking at the awards ceremony of the 2015 National Science and Technology Fair. Gilchrist says that the Ministry of Education is pleased with the participation of students and the support of VINLEC, the main sponsor, the schools and the parents.
It is all well and good for teachers to stand before the classes and to lecture and to theorize about what science is and what science can do. But of greater importance is the practical application of the theories. And the experiments which you do at school are there to ensure that you can apply practically what you are taught. It is in doing that you strengthen your knowledge. It is by practicing. And events such as the National Science Fair are designed to give you an opportunity to expose to the public the skills which you have learned at school. And this occasion this afternoon is for you to be publicly acknowledged for the work which you have done. It is very pleasing that the Beckwith Sunshine School was able to participate and Paradise was able to participate in this, because we are talking about inclusive education. We want no student, no child to be left behind.
Education Officer with responsibility for science, Amala Muhammad, says though the 2015 fair has been one of the biggest, she expressed disappointment with the participation in the agriculture science category. She added that the Ministry of Education is prepared to work even harder to invest more of their energies into making this year's fair bigger and to improve the quality of the projects with special emphasis on secondary schools.
And this year we will be focusing on the secondary school teachers. We have done a lot of work with the primary school teachers, and we are now seeing, we are yielding our, some level of success with those teachers. We will now be focusing on the secondary school teachers to ensure that the presentation of our projects and the level of the projects meet what are required for the secondary school projects. We hope that for the 2016 fair, we see more research being conducted at the secondary school level and post-secondary school levels. We do hope also that at the school phase, our students will be given an opportunity to talk about their projects. We got the impression that some persons did projects, but they were taken straight to the science fair. And our students didn't get a chance to present at the school level and got a chance to work out certain issues.
And the St. Mary's Roman Catholic School came out on top as the overall winner of the 2015 National Science Fair. It also took the title of Most Outstanding Primary School, whilst the St. Vincent Girls High School was Most Outstanding in the secondary division. Here's a look at the most outstanding winners of the competition.
And this goes to Zane Edwards of the St. Mary's RC for his geothermal power plant. Most outstanding primary school project. St. Martin Secondary School, Joshua Prescott, Vinci Go. Most outstanding secondary school project. And Joshua also receives a trophy along with a $300 gift voucher. Most outstanding in all of the projects, and this goes to Zane Edwards of St. Mary's RC for geothermal power plant. Geothermal power plant. St. Mary's RC was named the most outstanding primary school. The Girls High School being presented with the trophy as most outstanding secondary school in the 2015 Science and Technology Fair. St. Mary's RC is the overall winner. All the students.
Stigmatization continues to be an issue for persons living with disabilities, and Patricia Cumberbatch, president of the Society of Persons with Disabilities, says her organization is doing its part to put a stop to it. Speaking with SVG-TV earlier this week, Cumberbatch said her society conducts an annual rally to raise awareness as well as workshops targeting primary and secondary schools on the issue.
During these programs, we sensitize the schools and the public when we are on the road, in saying, okay then, we highlight the abilities of persons with disabilities and what persons with disabilities can do. In the school, what we do is because if the young generation can get it from the school level, okay, persons with disabilities are persons like you, they can feel, they can touch, they heart, they whatever like you, we stand. So in the event when we have that integration of persons with disability in the school system, they want to look at that child, to stigmatize that child, to say, okay then, to mock or to stay far from that child or to run from him or whatever. Because they are educated now, they will be able to help and to assist.
Cumberbatch said though the society is faced with financial constraints, she is encouraging persons with disabilities to utilize what little they have to demonstrate to the public that they can still make a meaningful contribution to society.
Because we know what our economy is tough and all that, but that is why I say to persons with disabilities, we have to use what we have. We have to show, the public that we have to start with what we have, whatever little we start with, so we can make our contribution regardless of what. Use our ability, what we, if we don't, maybe we may not have the space to start our horticulture program or our gardening program, but I say to persons with disabilities, use your backyard, until we could have our own.
Sharing some of the psychological scars of persons who have been victims of domestic violence, psychologist at the Milton K. Memorial Hospital, Dr. Joselle Miller, says domestic violence is a common occurrence and does not discriminate against race, social status, age, or gender. Speaking at a panel discussion held earlier this week looking at the revised Domestic Violence Act organized by Seroptimist International SVG and the SVG Bar Association, Miller notes some of the signs or red flags commonly seen in an abusive relationship. She says these signs are often overlooked, denied, and even excused, which is unacceptable.
One of the things that we have to bear in mind from the onset is that this person has fear. Fear not only of their abuser, but fear of the unknown. And this fear can be very crippling. Hence the reason why many are unwilling to seek help. Many times I will hear patients say, I know the evil that I have. I don't know what is to come. And we would have that judgmental look to say, I can't believe that you're going to stick up for years with all of this abuse. But then when you consider that they have children that they have to feed, they have no sort of independence financially or otherwise, then these persons are faced with the question, do I take the blows that is meted out to me and keep my children safe in a house where I can get food, clothing, or do I take the chance to say that I've had enough and I walk out and I may end up on the street if they don't have the options? The options which says that I'm here to help. The options which says that there are provisions in place to keep me safe.
Miller urged persons to be somewhat understanding, listen, and offer empathy when responding to persons who have been abused, noting that many times persons withstand the abuse because they have been cultured to endure such treatment.
Understand their situation, not necessarily going in with a judgmental approach to figure out why have you endured this for so long, but to understand where they are coming from. So we have to be supportive. We have to also understand that many may not be willing to leave. And if they are still not willing amidst all of their abuse, we still have to offer that support. It is not very easy for persons to regain their sense of self after years of being abused. And a lot of the times we find that adult victims have been children victims as well. So where they will have endured parents who would have been abusive physically, and we call it discipline. So many times we hear stories of how I grew up, kneeling on the grater and all these different things. And then now you're an adult and you're taking the same sort of abuse from a man or a woman. It is because you have been cultured that way to think that that is some form of love and acceptance.
While she commends the advocating of counseling for the abused and abusers in the revised Domestic Violence Act of 2015, the psychologist says the facts show it does not work, as persons often use it as a green light when nothing has changed or calls for more empowerment for the victims of domestic violence.
And get to the place where they understand that they have a problem that needs to be addressed, then we are going to be knocking our heads against the wall, because persons will sit there and it will go in one ear and come out of the next. It is very important that any victim of domestic violence be empowered by understanding what their rights are. Many times we don't know what our rights are. We take a lot of things for granted because we don't ask questions, and we feel as if we ask, we're going to be rocking the boat. But it's important today that we start learning what our rights as human beings are.
In related news, barrister at law Paula David says she is happy that the revised act legally obligates persons in top professions to report any suspected instances of domestic violence.
Police are obliged to give the leaflet that you were just shown to each person who makes a complaint of domestic abuse. You're not only obliged to give them the leaflet, you are obliged to explain it to them, right? Now, there are teachers here as well. The legislation gives you certain duties. You now have a legal duty to report every suspected case of domestic abuse that you see in a child. It's not only teachers who have that obligation. If a teacher, doctor, nurse, social worker, let me see who else, dentist, any those categories of persons now have a legal obligation. If you have reason to suspect that a child is being abused, you now have a legal obligation to report it. And you can't report it next week or next month. Your obligation is immediate. As soon as you have that suspicion, you have an immediate duty to make a report.
David said she welcomes the new provisions as they seek to create greater awareness that domestic violence is indeed a crime.
Why it's so progressive? I used to work in the registry, and we registered births and deaths. And every year we saw a number. We were registering births to girls age 13, age 14, age 12. Nobody, not us as persons responsible for registering births, nor the people at the hospital, had an obligation to go to the police and say a crime has been committed, because we know a crime has to be committed if a 12, 13, 14-year-old has had a baby. A crime was committed, there's no doubt about it. But none of us had an obligation to report that. No, we do. No hospital personnel have an obligation to make those. If you see a 12-year-old, you have that obligation too. A 13-year-old, a 14-year-old come into that hospital and have a baby. You never have an obligation to make a report to the police because a crime has been committed.
A 9-month jail term was this morning handed down upon Samoro Pollard, of a laborer of Rose Place, after he was convicted on ammunition-related charges. The court heard that on January 20th this year, police on Beckway responded to a report of the discharging of a firearm in the Paget Farm area. On arrival, the defendant was met at the Paget Farm police station. Based on information received, a search was conducted on Pollard, which led to the discovery of 8 rounds of .32 ammunition. As a result, he was arrested and charged for the possession of ammunition without a relevant license. The prosecution's case was presented by Corporal Kenrick Williams.